What is up, guys? My name is Blob and welcome to the first video of 2024. And I wanted to start this off in such a way that I would have been over the moon, and that is with the Amur Leopard. Why does that make me so happy? Well, the Amur Leopard is my favorite animal of all time, so I cannot wait to get these guys in. This was an absolute blast to build this habitat, and I wish you all the best for this new year. With the new year comes new animals, and in this instance, new mistakes. Later on in this video, we're going to have a absolute blunder, and I've left it in just because I want to show you my process of dealing with it and explaining the issue at hand, just so that you guys can potentially avoid it in future. Because if nothing else, I want you guys to come away with learning something, and I want that something to be that I can be a bit of a fool sometimes. So in the background here, you can see me working on what is going to be like a central river crossing the two sides. I found a reference image of this log going over this very shallow river with a leopard walking across it. Well, I assume it was an Amur leopard. It looked quite bushy, so, and it came up when I typed in Amur leopard. So unless Google has betrayed me, then, well, yeah, that image is not the case. But I start working on this river bit. I then realise that it's a bit too deep for what I want, so I make it a bit shallower. But I wanted this to be sort of one of the main focal points of this habitat, hence you see me starting with it here. And the watercolour was something I actually found myself deliberating quite a bit. I didn't want to go with that typical blue. When you stand on the edge of water sometimes, I've noticed that it can look black. And that's not because the water is dirty, but when you're standing at a shallow angle looking at the water, obviously you can't see the bottom, even if it's shallow water, because you're looking at it from like the lengthways, so you're looking through more water and therefore you can't see the bottom. I've done an awful job of explaining that, but yeah, I find that sometimes when I'm looking at water it can look black. It's not because it's dirty, like I say, it's because it's like a perspective thing. When you're standing at a shallow angle looking at it from like a sort of 5-degree angle, you can't see the bottom. If you're standing above it on a bridge and looking straight down, you'd probably be able to see the bottom because you're looking at it through its shortest, from the top to bottom, its shortest angle. Just doing some terrain work here, foliage, all that sort of thing. Terrain work, that's going to play a huge role in my mistake that I make a bit later on. Like I say, I really want to foreshadow that because it is quite the blunder. I wanted the exterior foliage to be in keeping with what was already in this area and the quote-unquote native foliage. And then I wanted the middle bits to sort of be quite themed foliage. So we've got quite a few of these stripped birch trees, just to add something, but you can still see the animal as it goes about its day in the habitat. Do a few fallen logs in the river and whatnot. These yew trees, I've started using them quite a bit as well. And these Gilder rose bushes, it's probably something I've slept on for the longest time, but I think when you start adding them into foliage like saltworts and custard trees and the creosote bushes, I really think that they do a great job of sort of standing out amongst all that green, having that little bit of, I know grey isn't a particularly fascinating colour, but yeah, I think it does a good job of popping in amongst all that different varieties of green. In the background here, you see now the fence, which is going to be the feeding area. This feeding area is going to be where guests who have paid to take part in feeding experiences can basically go here with their party or with the keeper, and the keeper will assist you and educate you while you do this. Obviously using mesh for this, because if it was glass you wouldn't be able to put the food through and be able to feed the leopards. So this section of the fence is going to be mesh, whereas a little bit later on we'll be doing a glass viewing area where there's no risk of you being able to put your fingers through and get them bitten. And here I decided that I was going to change up the barbed wire and put the hot wire instead, using the European, I think they were like the lamp pieces that help the ceiling fans hang from the ceiling. And these are just simply made using metal beams with the marquee beams on the inside and then mesh on the inside. It doesn't take a lot of pieces to do. You're looking at 8 for the frame, and then a mesh bit in the middle makes it 9. So the fence itself is only made up of like 9 pieces. So, and then we have concrete just to keep the Amur leopard from going through the foliages here. Concrete, obviously they can't climb. If it's made out of wood, wood's climbable to Amur leopards. So Going to be a lot of concrete, and you'll see me doing some big concrete walls a little bit later on at the back of the habitat, just to keep them from climbing up the rocks and getting out that way. Wanted to add a little bit of difference here. So I've sunk the ground down a little bit and put the concrete in and then slumped it down. Like I say, this is going to be sort of like quite an educational area, and in that way the concrete can carry on through the fence to the other side where the guests will stand, and I can put some markings on the ground to show where people should be standing and whatnot to keep themselves safe at all times, as well as the animal, of course. And you'll see how I aid that here. I end up putting these fences in just to keep people that aren't taking part in the feeding behind the fence. And then what would basically happen is that the keeper would be next to the fence with there's like a bucket that you see me place with some detailing on like actual food in the bucket with a stick that they would put the meat on to be able to feed the leopard. And a lot of these sanctuaries have this kind of thing, and then what they'll encourage the leopard to do is jump up at the fence to claim the food. And this isn't a trick like for the sake of showing off like the animal. These tricks are taught to the animals to help the vets perform checkups and stuff on them. So they're not done to basically treat the animals like performing seals. It is because if they need to check the pads on the bottom of leopards and stuff, it's a lot easier to train them to jump up against the fence while they feed them and check them, rather than sedating the animal, which can always pose a risk to the animal. A little trick here you see is putting the path down and then putting the enrichment items on top of it, just to stop the terrain modifications from happening and flattening out areas that you don't want it to do. Really good tip, and I encourage you to do that if you find yourself having that issue. Now, I said at the start of this video that Amur leopards are my favourite animal of all time, and I want to explain a little bit about why that is. Obviously, when I started this project, the whole point of it was conservation, and when I think of conservation, I think of the WWF. And when I think of the WWF, I think of two animals: the panda, obviously because of their logo, and because of the Amur leopard. And I think that's because of some TV ads that used to be on when I was a child of Amur leopards. They really are such a great story in terms of conservation. Obviously, numbers are still quite low, but they have seen a resurgence in recent years, and obviously we all hope that this number continues to increase, because those of us with kids, I would hate to think that our kids would grow up not knowing how beautiful an Amur leopard is. I know I have that with things like the thylacine. You look at the thylacine in videos and you think, wow, that is an absolutely incredible looking creature, but obviously no longer with us. And well, yeah, that depends who you ask. There are obviously people that think that they have seen thylacines, but it's very, 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 very highly unlikely. So, but that's a topic for another video, I think. But yeah, facts about Amur leopards. Amur leopards are probably the most rare cat in the world. Like I say, their numbers have been on the very, very low side for a number of years, but they are stable and increasing. Where can you find Amur leopards? Amur leopards live on the eastern range of China, on the western range of Russia, on the border, very close to where North Korea is as well. It's a very small area of land that they natively live in. And as you can probably imagine, it gets extremely cold where they live. But they do have two types of coat. They have a summer coat, which tends to be around about 2 centimeters long. And then in the winter, in the colder seasons, it can grow up to 7 centimeters long. Along with this, they obviously have a big bushy tail that they use to wrap around themselves to keep themselves warm, very similar to how snow leopards do as well. While on the topic of their coats, their spots, or rosettes, that are commonly referred to as on leopards, act as fingerprints, and they're very unique to each leopard, which makes them easily to identify individuals. Like I said, they're called rosettes on leopards, and then jaguars obviously have the spots. This is how you can tell the difference between the two. Their tongues also boasting a unique adaptation. They're covered with these sharp pointed rasps called papillae, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, which are used to basically scrape meat off of the bones. Obviously, when you live in a harsh environment like they do, every scrap of food that you can find counts in terms of your survival, especially in the winter months when you are reliant on it for warmth as part of your body mass. They typically tend to live between 10 and 15 years, some living up to 20 years old in captivity. they don't have specific breeding periods either. Their gestation period lasts around about 12 weeks. And when they do give birth, they give birth to around about 2 to 3 cubs, which are born blind and weigh around half a kilogram. The mothers then keep them hidden for around about 6 to 8 weeks before bringing them out into the big wide world. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed some of those Amur Leopard facts. I know when I was researching this video, there was a couple of those that I didn't know. So very fascinating to learn about these animals still after having a fascination with them after so many years. In the background, this is the detailing I was talking about with this feeding area. I've got this bucket with this pole that I put in, and then I'm using the faux rocks coloured red to act as sort of like meat in the bottom of the bucket that guests would be able to use to feed the Amur Leopards. And our Amur Leopards are of course going to have some lore. At the very start of this project, I talked about the sanctuary getting hold of 2 Amur Leopards, and these 2 Amur Leopards that are going to be in this habitat aren't going to be those Amur Leopards. They're going to be the offspring of 2 Amur Leopards. Basically, what happens is the female and male would have come into the sanctuary, and when they were old enough, the male would have been sent off to another zoo to take part in a breeding program there, whereas the sanctuary here would have then taken on a new male to then be that would have been compatible to breed with the female that was in the sanctuary. And as a result, we have had 2 cubs, and the same story again. The male has been sent to another zoo, and the 2 that are in here right now are going to be the ones. The female is going to be the one that was born to the original pair of Amur Leopards, and the male is one that we would have taken on from another zoo. And their names are going to be Luna and Takani. Takani being the male and Luna being the female. Takani is named after an old family friend's dog that was, well, it was part wolf. I think Takani actually directly translates to wolf in Inuit or something along those lines. And I just kind of like the name. It sounds very fitting for an Amur Leopard, as opposed to calling it something like Keith. I don't know. But yeah, I like the names, and they're the names that we're going to be sticking with, because I just want this place to have as much lore as humanly possible when creating it, just to give it a bit more character. In the background, I'm always checking my sightlines. This is something I highly encourage you to do when you're going through. Like I say, you can see there the second viewing point still has mesh, and every time I stood there I thought to myself, the view is not very good here, and I eventually made the decision to just get rid of the mesh and put in the thin glass panels in their place. But just carrying on with like foliage work along the river here, I put the log to help the Amur Leopards cross the river as well. And here I just sort of come to the decision, no, mesh is not the way to go with this. I'm going to be using the glass panels, and that's what I'm doing. In a moment, you're going to see me building an indoor area for these Amur Leopards as well. As of right now, it is not completely finished. I have done the interior and something of the exterior, but I want it to be like a sheltered area for guests to be able to stand when they're looking at the Amur Leopards when they're indoors. The indoor area isn't going to be particularly spacious, but at the end of the day, these Amur Leopards predominantly live outside. They're not ever forced to come inside. The only exception to the rule might be if there was something like a big storm, or there might be a threat to the Amur Leopards, which mean that they will be coerced inside and then kept inside for a brief period of time while they're kept safe. You got here the climbing areas. They are very active cats at the end of the day. They can climb, so I wanted to add a bit of climbing enrichment for them as well. I think they actually need it as part of their requirements if you was playing franchise and going by all of that stuff. And I just wanted to add a bit of difference here with some platforms and then some posts that they could climb up and down on. It's nothing too spectacular, but it's enough that like I say, the sanctuary wouldn't be going like over the top with this side of the thing. I think at the end of the day, I just wanted this to look as natural as I could possibly get it, because at the end of the day, this is the Amur Leopard's home, and the guests that come to visit the Amur Leopards, they're exactly that. They're guests. The focal point is definitely on the Amur Leopards here. Just a little bit of a tire swing as well, hanging off of this piece of log here. Obviously not functional, but just a nice little detail that I think can help bring these types of habitat come together. And more buffalo grass going to be placed shortly on this other side of the habitat. I'm very, very, very glad that I did actually place the buffalo grass in when I did. Again, this is all going to come back round to this huge mistake that I make. So I'm glad that I put the buffalo grass in when I did, because otherwise this would have made this video a hell of a lot more difficult to make than it should have been. I was as well going to do a lodge adjoining to this habitat, but I decided against that in the end. I found a reference image for a place in the UK called Wolf Watch UK, and it has a lodge that basically is half hanging over a, not a cliff, but a sheer drop ravine, and then in that ravine is where they have wolves, and you can wake to the sound of wolves howling and such. Really cool idea, and I have been asking around to see what sort of big cat you think would be best suited for something like that, and I've had some really good suggestions, but I'm not going to be saying too much more than that right now. There's going to be a new restaurant as well being built with the lion habitat adjacent to it. The building for that is already underway. I've been doing that on stream. If you want to follow me on Twitch, the link is down below in the description. I'm always building something for this project on there. Not always habitats, not always the guest facilities, but at the moment I'm working on that restaurant. Here we've got these large retaining walls that I decided to put together. I saw these in Vihoha's zoo when he did Neuroscope, and I love the way they look. They're very simplistic, very minimal pieces, and I think they would, if they were real walls, I think they would do a fantastic job of keeping the Amur leopards from escaping. And yeah, I end up using this heavy duty fence that I then delete the actual bottom bit of and use the top to then line the top with barbed wire, just to stop Amur leopards from getting out, but also stopping people from randomly getting in. This is going to be located quite close to the road section, so this would sort of, I guess, be an area of high security risk if someone was to break in. This is where the sort of area they would like try and do it, because it is so close to the main road leading into the sanctuary. And thank you so much for sticking through the video if you're still here at this point. I understand this is quite a long video by my standards, but the last one was only like 9 minutes long when I did the tour, and I really wanted to get this video out. And I really wanted to include sort of as much as I humanly could. Normally I cut down quite a lot when I'm building these habitats, so I wanted to try and get as much in as I humanly could. If you have any questions on anything that you see, please feel free to hit a comment down in the comment section below. And this is where I start working on the interior section. I already had an idea in my head on how I wanted this to look. I wanted it to be made out of painted brick, the bottom section of the wall being made out of white, and then the upper section being like a dark green. And I end up being really happy with how this turns out. The detail that I managed to get into this very small area is just, I think the smaller details, like even though they don't require a lot of pieces, really can make the difference when you're doing something like this. So the idea being that this will be viewable to the guests as well, but it's going to be one-way glass so that it doesn't stress the leopards out. And then in the middle we've got this partition wall with the fence, and then the one on the right, I've decided I've sort of made the different sides based on the leopards and to reflect their character. So the one on the left here is going to be Luna's. Luna's quite a messy individual, so what does that mean? It means that she likes to kick her bedding around quite a lot, so you'll see me place more bedding on the left side than you see on the right side. But Takani can be a little bit boisterous sometimes, and because of that I end up placing a scratch on the door that is going to be at the back of his compartment at the back there. It ends up looking super good, and it just uses 3 simple pieces. And then they've both got these like folded down log bed type things. They can sit up on them if they want, or they can sit underneath them if they wish to as well. Again, the Amur leopards can come in here whenever they want. They're not ever going to be forced in here unless it's for their own safety and such like thing. But here we are putting the one-way glass in, and then on the right we're going to have like a little info panel for Takani, and then on the left we're going to have an info panel for Luna as well. A little bit of detailing on the glass as well. And then I go and grab the decal pieces that I turned brown just to sort of help merge the threshold of the door in with the floor of the indoor area. That's the word I was looking for. In terms of outdoors, I already knew that I wanted to carry on the theming of the lodges over in the Grove. So we have this black corrugated iron look that I'm going for, and then I end up decorating it with a few little bits here and there. But I think that's how I wanted it to sort of tie together, as a reminder that you were in the same place. Like, you come from these lodges that are made out of wood and corrugated iron, and then when you find one of these like viewing areas, it's made out of corrugated iron and a little bit of wood as well. Here I'm making a door for the back here, and they can get through here. I've tested it, so I'm actually super happy I managed to get this working first time of asking. You'll see that at the end of the video, I believe. And now I just use the arbor wood to make the doors themselves, the LED bits as like the bits attaching it to the ceiling and the door, and then these chain pieces that I've started using an awful lot for the chain that helps the keeper lower and raise the door as of when it's needed. Here I had the super cool detail of Takani's scratch on the door from where he can be a bit temperamental. I just end up using 3 bracket pieces. The ones on the outside I pushed in more than the outside, and it ends up giving this really nice look of a scratch on the door. And then I keep that door closed just so that you can see that scratch as well. And then Luna's one is the one that I open, and then it means that they can get inside there with the box on the floor. Again, this box is something that Luna's brought in. She's quite messy. She likes her stuff to be her stuff. She's quite possessive. So this box is something that she's brought into her little area. And then I end up just adding these little cameras in here. Obviously, if Luna was to be giving birth or something like that, the likelihood is that she would come indoors to do that, and this way keepers can monitor her while she goes through that process remotely, basically. This corner bit is just to bring the whole building together around to the front, because there was like a gap, and then I'll work on the information signs, like I say, at a later date. And that stuff will probably be all done like off camera and off stream and whatnot. I'll end up just doing that in my own time, just to tie it all together with the detail, those like really fine details. But I'll make sure I cover them when I come to do the next tour, which is definitely obviously going to include this area. The roof, I hate doing roofs. They are my Achilles heel. If 2024, if there's something I want to master in this game, it's definitely roofs. So I think going into that is something I'm going to be looking at improving for sure. And then I just sort of like slightly lower the building down a little bit, and then put the Zen pebbles up on the roof here. If you don't have this blueprint, it's literally on the workshop. It's pieces that were supposed to be included in the game, but for whatever reason weren't. If you download this off the workshop, then it unlocks those pieces to use in the game. There's no risk of using them. I've never heard of any risks of using them, so definitely get hold of them if you want something to use for your roofing areas like I do. I know a lot of other people use them for their roofs as well. And I think I actually test it out now, if I remember rightly. I do like a small, I place a small concrete barrier, and then I put an Amur Leopard in just to see if they could get in, because it was a very fingers crossed moment. And I end up using a male, because I think the males are slightly larger in terms of their model. So if a male can get through, the females definitely can. And as you can see there, they definitely can. So super happy, ended up taking them out, and I knew I could use this without any care in the world or any fear of them never ever using it. And then I just blueprint it just so that I can move it a little bit closer to the edge of the habitat where I want it to be. This will be like a raised area that you can like climb up to with a pathway. Like I say, it's going to be all very... I was going to rotate it, but I thought this was a better way of doing it, because then I could have the keeper hut and services on the right hand side here, because there's going to be another habitat to the right of this as well. This is like a dead end to the zoo basically. And then just some detailing with like the Amur Leopard. These statues are adorable from the conservation pack, so really wanted to get these little chonkers in, and then just put some support pillars just to keep them sitting upright. And then just some more foliage here. And then I go on to the exterior walls and finishing all the exterior walls that I made just to keep it all enclosed, because we're getting to the part of the video which pertains to my huge mistake, and that mistake is blueprints. But like I say, we'll get to that in just a moment here. It's just me finishing up the exterior walls, just making sure that it can't escape from any points, merging all the foliage so that rock work looks like it blends into the habitat as well. Yeah, these creosote bushes are amazing. God, I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, but they're absolutely phenomenal. I love them to pieces. The yellow ones and the normal ones. But yeah, it's just going to be me finishing up the exterior fences, and then I end up putting in these blueprint lights that are part of the base game. Everyone should have them in their game. They come with the game. They're basically wooden logs with a shade and then some lights that cover all angles. Really, really nice pieces. Encourage you to use these if you struggle with light. And here we are with the start of what I'm going to be calling the Great Mistake. The idea being that obviously when I put this zoo together, or this blueprint together, I built it in a separate zoo just to avoid grouping any items together. I didn't want to like sort of accidentally delete, because I've had it before where I'll group things together accidentally, delete one item, and it will delete a whole group on the other side of the zoo. So I thought, do the blueprint in a separate folder or file, blueprint it, and put it all across because of all the terrain paint will get carried across. Boy, was I wrong. First mistake you see me do here is because the trees are clipping underground, it's not actually being picked up by the blueprint because the barrier is on the surface. So I then have to go back, sink the bottom of the barrier below the ground just so that it picks up all of the little trees and stuff that are acting as barriers for this whole habitat. I save it and I go back. When I go back, I go to put the blueprint down again and place it, and everything's there. Perfect. I've got all the trees that I wanted, all the barriers are there. But then I quickly noticed, hang on, this river isn't dug out. So I started digging the river out, thinking to myself, gosh, it's a bit annoying. Took me a little while to get the banks how I wanted it to go. And then I sort of realized, hang on, none of this is done. And what do you see there? That is a gap. That gap is where the ground should be, which means I have to go through this whole habitat and redo the terrain work across the whole thing again. Yeah, what a mistake. I won't be doing that again. So every building I'm going to be doing is going to be done in this sanctuary from now on. But jokes aside, it actually didn't turn out as bad as I thought it would. Sorting the terrain work out was actually pretty simple. The way you want to do this if you ever make this mistake is start from the higher ground and then use the flatten to foundation tool on a low intensity and small size, and then just start sort of clicking your way down so that these slopes end up just forming themselves around the grass. The grass kind of helped me with it as a guide on where I should have been putting this terrain work. So you see me here starting at the top of this hill, and then I start like rapid clicking, and then the grass starts appearing through the terrain where it should be. So this is actually a pretty relatively simple fix all in all. I just had to sort of work around the banks of the river to get that looking how it originally was. And then the same with this sort of feeding area here. I just used the decals on the ground as like a good guide on where I should have been putting the flattened to foundation down to. And like I say, luckily it worked out, because at the time of me making that mistake, I almost wanted to alt F4, but I didn't, and I persevered through it, and I'm glad I did, because it means I managed to get this habitat done. It's just going to be me basically adding some details to the exterior of the habitat, sort of conjoining all the walls together so that they can't escape, finishing some plants and paving in certain areas. You see me here working on the feeding area. I then come up with the idea that I'm going to make a little bit of a cut through from the grove up to the Amur Leopard habitat, but this is obviously isn't the way that is encouraged for you to go. So what I'm going to be doing is adding a wooden fence at a later date with a sty that goes over the fence. A sty is sort of like these two crisscross wooden planks that help you get over a fence. Like I say, it's not supposed to be the way that you can go, but this is going to act as a little shortcut for maybe keepers if they want to get through or anything like that, or security personnel. But I just thought it was something nice to sort of add to keep, just to sort of remind you that it was all one park rather than just these like different segmented areas. So joining these two up is going to be something that I'm doing in the future with just a little bit of detailing with some fencing, which you can see me adding in here. I need to go back and get the sty. I've already made it in another project, but I just need to go back and blueprint it and put it in here just so that it goes over the fence, and then sort of decorate this area so that I want it to be more of a narrower sort of way of getting through. I don't want it to be quite so open, but I'll work on that at a later date. I just want to get this main habitat done, and then once I have an idea about what is going to be going in around this area, I can then sort of finish up the complete detailing on this area. Going through and doing the terrain work here, like the terrain painting, because like I say, the great mistake cost me in many regards, and the terrain paint was unfortunately one of them. But I like to think I'm semi-proficient at terrain painting now, so it's a pretty quick fix once again, luckily for me. And yeah, go through, delete the barriers, and start doing some pathing and paving for the second viewing area, which is meant to be sort of your main viewing area, whereas the one on the left here with the mesh fence is supposed to be your feeding bit, hence it's mesh so you can actually get the food through. But this is going to be your main viewing bit for actually seeing them walk around the habitat and using the climbing frame that you see inside the habitat. For the next few minutes, I think I'm just going to put this on speed build mode, put the music up a tiny bit, and you can watch me decorate with the paths and the fence as well. And I'll be back again at the end of the video just to explain the person who's going to be looking after these animals as well, and another main character in this story of the park. Okay, and I am back. Now, while I keep doing the foliage in the background here, of course you all know I love my lore, and when I think of the Amur Leopard, the organisation, the WWF, comes to mind, and I think that's because when I was younger, the WWF used to do Amur Leopard appeal adverts on the television, and when I think of the WWF, it makes me think of one person, and his name is Luke. When we did our fundraiser last year for the WWF, he was my point of contact throughout the whole thing, and he was absolutely superb. He was there during the stream, supporting, egging everyone on, and it was just a generally great time, and for that I will never be able to forget like Luke, or be able to repay him in a way that I would want to. So he's going to be named after the keeper who's going to be looking after the Amur Leopards. So here's to Luke. What an absolutely outstanding guy, and also the work that he does as well as the WWF. And here he is, Luke, very happy, as you can see, to be looking after the Amur Leopards. I don't blame him. I'd be dancing if I was looking after the Amur Leopards. But he might be looking after some other big cats in the sanctuary as well. He is one of the original members of staff, along with Patricia, when the sanctuary was founded. So he has a really close bond with a lot of the animals that are here, because he's been here since the beginning and since they have joined us as well. So he's going to be one of our founding members, and happy to have him on board. And this is going to be me winding down the video. This is just me doing the barriers and putting the Amur Leopards in. I've got a little bit of footage of the Amur Leopards walking around the habitat as well. If you have any tips on how to get better footage for the animals walking around the habitats, let me know, because I would love to get some better footage than just these passing by shots. But that's going to be the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Love you all, and have a great new year. Peace out. Bye bye.